Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 3. It seems like we've been in class now for a month with as long as Saturday and Sunday were. If you're like me, you felt pretty tired. You felt pretty emotionally drained, psychologically drained, maybe even physically drained. So these as I mentioned, I think in another class, these are called intensives. I mean, so we've had another university I used to teach at called these intensives because they are intense. It is intense emotion. It's people being real. Group dynamics are something you cannot recreate. Every group, I would say, has its own personality, its own shape, based on the members and how each other get along and how, people interact and the dynamics that people have in between each other. I'll say I was very impressed with both groups. Both groups really put their heart and soul into the time that we had. There were definitely deep topics shared. I'll reiterate again. I mean, I know we went over it, multiple times throughout the days. Please, keep the information private between your group. Um, and hopefully you're beginning to see um, some of the power of groups. So if these are both closed groups as opposed to an open group where other people are going to come in. I fear a little bit for the end of this class where you have a couple of new student observers that are going to come in. I will say this, the practicum students are held by our own confidentiality standards and they can be in trouble for, not obeying those. Yeah, just know that you put in a lot of time and a lot of heart and a lot of effort. I want to talk about the group stages now. I didn't get a chance to really go over those, and I do want to spend some time just briefly talking about group stages. So let me see if I can share my screen to where you all can see it. And hopefully this is big enough. You can see it from here. But this slide, and this was the PowerPoint that I shared. This is online. And, I left off adjourning or adjourning, right? The way I pronounced it for the mnemonic device. So this comes from Tuckman, 1965, and talking about forming. Even, in this model, storming is ahead of norming. So I think that these two can go back and forth and flip-flop. And please know that you have this inner circular dynamic. These can always start over. And I definitely saw that with the group that I supervised. We got to the end of day 2 or towards the afternoon and saw a little bit of this storming and again kind of renorming what we were doing. So that's okay. And I don't know about the dynamics in the primarily the educators group. I know we have got yeah, MCP students. I'm not discounting you at all, but you guys are in you ladies are in a primarily an educators group. But I talked a little bit about that. I talked a little bit about the storming that can happen, and maybe the disagreements, the things that that we talk about and we establish. So we established our rules over time, and hopefully those things will continue. I know that there's a what we could have done maybe in both groups, and I want to talk a little bit about the here and now, how the here and now applies in a bigger setting. So the here and now might be a situation where if the group comes to a decision like, okay, well, there might be a lack of trust here. We can all talk about, okay, what it might take to reestablish trust or what has broken the trust or this and that. And then it becomes a group process thing. Um, so, again, it's like in an ideal group setting, the the dynamics stay within that group. And so the idea and this so this is the educators didn't get this get this portion of it from me. And I think that the reason this came out, and this example came out, is because we did have a little dynamic shift towards the end of the group on Sunday. And so, um, what the idea behind group counseling, even if you look at Yalom and some of these other group theorists, that groups really accentuate personality and also tend to draw out a person's role that they played in their family. That they tend to, in other words, it's almost like a gestaltish, like, can we really kind of, or existentialist, can we push buttons? Think Fritz Perls. You had those three videos and you had like Pearls just rubbed me the wrong way, like made the lady smoke more. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But think Fritz Pearls and really just trying to not make somebody mad, but trying to get like this is the real personality. And so the idea behind group a process group is we tend to recreate our personalities, what we have, what we've deeply embedded as children growing up. And so, personality, think lifelong, attributes, characteristics that we have as humans. And if we have something fixated or we have some dysfunction that's related to our personality or how we get along with others, where we might not have had a safe place in our family to deal with those, to deal with, okay, this is one of my traits, or this is one of my habits, or maybe this is a fault, or maybe this is a strength, whatever it is, this is just who I am. Is if you can get that radical acceptance in the group that we're not going to kick anybody out, nobody's better than another person. We're going to work through this. There's the catharsis that takes place into bawling and being vulnerable in front of other people and having other people connect with you in a judgment-free zone, hearing that you're not alone, seeing other people heal. This is this is this can be a really powerful thing. And so if you're in a situation, it's really easy to get like take things super personal sometimes, right? It's very easily to and I would me included. I've been in situations where it's like, well, the people are just out to get me or something like that. But it can also be if you have like several people confront something, it can also be a very healing thing because it's like, oh, there's a mirror. People are doing this in a non-judgmental way. And so there's a mirror for me to kind of look at and see, okay, how is this something that I can work on? Can I bring it back to the group? Can I talk to them? Can I share this? And so it's like the group becomes its own like thing. Uh, I hope I'm not talking too abstractly. I have some fears that I am, but again, it's like the dynamics that are created in group are something that cannot be created into one individual session. So if you have like some deeply embedded like things within you that come out, it's okay. Again, it's like good, bad, and ugly. It's like this is who I am, and the group is going to be there. And if it's not, then the group is not functioning. So I will say, how do you get this perspective? Are you just reading this from a textbook? No, I'm not. I've seen it throughout my career with this. I saw it teaching at Adams. In my own PhD class, like working through group counseling, we had to read a book, and the book was not this one. Actually, where's the other one? Okay, well, there were three books by Yalom. Here's another one. We had to read we had to read this one, lying on the couch. This one's about ethics. This one's pretty uh I don't know. It's pretty interesting. Yalom's an interesting author. I actually haven't read all this, but this is another one. Yalom wrote something called the Schopenhauer Cure, and so I had to read something called the Schopenhauer Cure. Arthur Schopenhauer was actually a philosopher in the 1800s that did a lot to influence like Freud's ideas and our ideas in early psychology. And so the Schopenhauer Cure is an interesting book because it's a parallel thing. It looks at the life of Arthur Schopenhauer, which would be like a really dull biography, right? But in between these things, so it's like a biography written biographically about Arthur Schopenhauer. But then in between these things, like a flashback in between, every other chapter is the life of this group. And so it's like the group therapist talks about um and it's taken from Yalom's true stories when he's practicing group counseling and group therapy with people. And so it's like he's taken these synopses of people's lives and different group experiences that he's had over the years and put them into this novel. And it's fiction, but it's actually quite a bit of nonfiction because it's taken from very similar situations to what he encountered. I didn't make it mandatory. I've never made it mandatory for this class, but it was mandatory for me. And it was nice because then it was like I was able to see a parallel there, see a parallel in what I was teaching in class, seeing a parallel with groups that I've observed outside here in therapy. So um really cool things. And I like I said, I'm not displeased with any of this. I'm pleased with what's happening in our class. So please keep up the hard work. Please know that you're appreciated here, what you're doing and sacrificing. We'll have one more live class. That'll be July 11th. Professor Miller will lead that. It'll be a lot of the same kind of structure. You all are going to work out online. You're going to work out in a discussion board, like the order of groups and also the content of your groups, like your group topics. We did, I think, in each group get to observe how the topic really does dictate the tone. If you have a topic that's talking about coping skills or growth strategies or whatever it might be, that's going to be a superficial group. If you talk about like unresolved current conflicts, that's going to be a group that's going to have some lively discussion. Uh, you know, so think about what you want to do because you'll want to start the day like a reintroduction, check in with everybody. How have y'all been? If you have anything that you need to bring up from the last group. So if you felt like things didn't end on a good note, you as a group member could raise your hand and say, "Hey, I've thought about this with our group and I want to bring it up and I want to talk about it before we go throughout the day." And that could take a session or two. And you don't have to plan that before time. That could just happen organically. Again, I want this to be an organic thing because you learn more if it's real. It may be more threatening that, hey, I don't have a clear structure, but it also you learn through the process because it's a real engagement. So gang, I guess that's all I have. Please look for the stuff here. There's not too much here on week 3 just because you're exhausted, and so am I. Tuning in 8, 9 hours a day to everybody deep emotional level is zapping. It's not quite. I would say this is a little harder than it is when you're doing your own practice. But there are days in your own practice where you come home and you feel the same way, where you're just wiped and you need a minute and you need to sleep and get away from it. So hopefully everybody's got away from it. Reach out if you need anything. Otherwise, good work, y'all. It was good to see and connect with everybody. I look forward to the next couple weeks online. See you soon.